And this book documents it and puts it all into perspective.
And what did the sheriff say?
And he said, "You think government's tyrannical. I don't." He was a Josh. Remember our Josh that we talked to this morning? He was another Josh, the Marine that we talked to this morning.
Yeah. They let us eat salmon that's part insect. They let us eat crops that are killing honeybees.
Yeah.
You know, that have been proven to be giving us cancer. I mean, that's mainline news. GMO crops causing infertility, cancer, and won't let us have it labeled.
Yeah.
But then real cheese that you taste it. If it's sour, it's not good.
Right.
They pasteurize it so they can feed you rotten crap.
Correct.
They radiate food so they can feed you rotten crud. They legalize all the poison. And then obviously if a cheese company ever had bad cheese, or if you ever shipped bad lobsters one time, you'd be out of business.
You're out.
The free market does that. Instead, big agribusiness, I've seen cases where Tyson Chicken, it was even the Associated Press, had thousands of violations at one plant. Their smaller competitor had one little violation and was shut down. And it's big agri writing all this. And so, and so that sheriff needs to be thrown out.
Well, he does. And so at the end of our meeting, you know, I gave him my books, you know, and he was tossing them aside and all this. And I said, if you would just take a few minutes to look at that, you'll see that the U.S. Supreme Court agrees with me what I've put out here. 7 sheriffs in this country filed this lawsuit with me. I was the first to file in 1994. Sheriff Prince was second. He and I end up at the Supreme Court together because he and I were in the same
And
circuit.
you won. This is the law. This is America.
We won.
And he disrespects you, somebody who went to the Supreme Court with a landmark decision.
Correct.
You have the ruling, and he says, I choose to say it's not tyrannical. You've been proven right in the courts and in common sense, and he just says, it's just like that.
However,
it's just like Josh today.
Right.
When we said, there's foreign troops trying to come into America. And he said, yeah, I'm for the military being on the streets. Yeah. And I said, but the law, but the founding fathers were, and see.
And did he care about posse comitatus?
No.
Not one iota. Not one.
You were going to say something about the case.
Yeah, okay. Well, the sheriff, the bottom line with that, I said, Sheriff, let me do this. Why don't you call the U.S. Attorney's Office that allowed this raid to go on in these good people's home and at their farm? And why don't you call them and ask them what it was for and tell them not to do it again unless you're involved. Or tell them even go one step further. Just tell them you want this family left alone. And I said, do you want me to tell you right now what will happen? They'll leave this family alone. All you have to do is call them and talk to them about it and tell them you wish that this family, that these people will be left alone. And I said, I'll bet you they will. He did it. He called them, and it happened.
So he was kind of afraid and said, oh, you think they're tyrannical, but he finally exercised his authority.
Just to kind of get rid of us.
Grand juries are kept now. Juries are kept. Sheriffs are kept. State legislatures are kept. It's about waking up out of the trance and saying, why do we have states? Why do we have sheriffs?
Yeah. Why do we have counties? You know, if we're just puppets, and in this case, actually, Scalia, who wrote this decision, actually uses that terminology.
Read some of it.
All right. Scalia goes, this guy's pretty funny. States are not puppets of a ventriloquist Congress. You see, we're not their puppets. We're not their pawns. We're not their little redcoats. They do not own us. They cannot tell us what to do. And what this case says, Alex, and that's why I'm really glad to be on your program, because so many people can get this, because they understand and want to understand the Constitution, is that he's actually telling us in this case that the federal government is not our boss.
But if we roll over to tyranny, then we're conquered.
Yeah, we are. If we let them enslave us, then they're the boss.
So at the end of the day, look in the mirror, and they know you're waking up now. They know you're waking up now, so that's why they're saying, oh, these people that like Ron Paul and the Constitution, they're terrorists. They want to kill you, police. And then they even go out and provocateur things to make that true, because we're the real Americans. I mean, look, if you don't like America, then say you want global world government and you want tyranny. But don't say we're the extremist when we're following what made the country great. Continue.
One other one.
Start over with that. Okay. Give us the whole body of that.
All right. Well, first, Scalia really pushes this deal about the states are sovereign, and he said, now when the states form the federal government, and that's a key component there, the states form the federal government. So does that make the federal government our boss? or are we their boss?
My parents made me show, I guess when I'm born, I'm the feds, and
all of a sudden you're in charge.
I'm 1 year old, and I go, now I'm the boss.
Yeah, exactly, which is absurd.
It's kind of like an out-of-control teenager, actually.
Yeah. And so Scalia said, though, even though we delegated some powers to the new federal government, the states retained a residuary and inviolable sovereignty. So if the states are really and truly inviolably sovereign, why don't we control our own resources, our own education?
Why don't we get rid of the 17th Amendment and bring the senators back to the states?
That's exactly correct. That's another key component of all of this. And then he goes on to say, the federal government we held may not compel the states to enact or administer a federal regulatory program. You got to remember, this is June 27, 1997. Does that sound like he's talking about Obamacare?
And carbon tax?
Where do you think Obamacare and all of this is going to be enforced? In Washington, D.C.? No. It's going to be in the state. It's going to be in Austin. It's going to be in the county. It'll be in every county, all 254 counties.
Oh, they mandate that we carry it out.
Exactly. They will. And so where can we stop it? County by county, state by state. This says that Obamacare cannot be forced upon the states. We do not have to participate. They are not our boss. So this decision says your sheriff does not have to take orders from the federal government. Let's be specific. The President of the United States cannot tell your county or your sheriff or your state what to do. Your governor, state reps, nobody. The United States Congress cannot tell your sheriff or your state what to do. If Congress and the President cannot tell your sheriff what to do or your state, then how did the EPA get that authority? How did the FDA get that authority?
Well,
how
let
did
me
the
stop
IRS
you.
get it?
How did I have an example here today in my stack where he's a boxer, he's in great shape, and he's got a prosthesis. He's only got one hand, and he went to get a TSA job, and they just said openly, "No, you're crippled."
You can't grope people with that hand.
Well, and he went on and said, "But American with civil disabilities,
yeah, right.
Americans with Disabilities Act," and they said, "We're not under that. There's no law." They say they don't need to radiation test their scanners. Mm-hmm. When under federal law you have to, and state law. They just say, we don't care. Right. FBI can't stick their hands on your pants or in your pants without a warrant. They just do it. It's the same thing with all this. It's just an out-of-control, tyrannical power grab where they say, Americans with Disabilities Act, radiation laws, Fourth Amendment, 10th Amendment, states' rights,
Second Amendment,
a federal judge just ruled, hey, we want TSA at school proms groping people. No, I'm not kidding.
Can't they wait till afterwards, like all the other boys?
Exactly. But I mean, that's one. I mean, it's just a mad power grab.
It is. It is, and I do poke fun at it because that's really the only way I can handle it. Because this stuff would drive you crazy if you let it. Because it's so out of control and it's so bass-ackwards, as you say. It is so 100% diametrically opposed to the Founding Fathers' vision that makes it scary. And it is scary. And so anyway, I've dedicated my life to making sure that there are constitutional sheriffs in this country who will stand against the tyranny of the federal government. It is the greatest protection, and it is the greatest solution. And I said, everything that you've said, that you have dedicated your life to, all of that can be stopped sheriff by sheriff, county by county,
if the
state
people
by state.
Will reanimate the republic with their energies, with the truth.
Let me tell you where that has happened. Grant County, Oregon, Sheriff Glenn Palmer. I have on my website, sheriffmack.com, I have an article right at the top about him. He invited me out there 10 years ago to teach my Constitution class to all his department. Now, 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, he invited me back. And I've been in touch with him ever since. I know what he's been doing.
And let me guess, he's more popular now than ever.
More popular now than ever. And let me tell you why you reminded me of this and what you just said. Because the people got working behind their sheriff and working with their sheriff to stop the tyrants. Let me tell you what this other county, before I tell you what Sheriff Palmer did. This county voted in voter referendum, got petitions and put it on the ballot, and voted to make Grant County a UN-free zone.
Beautiful.
Isn't that wonderful? And so these are people who know and understand freedom. Then, now they have a county sheriff, a constitutional sheriff, whose oath of office means something to him. He takes it seriously. And he's told the United States Forest Service, you better back off and leave my people alone. They're citing people for going out and collecting and clearing dead wood. These are people who...
So when there's a lightning strike, everything burns down.
Exactly.
You don't clear it.
The Forest Service has created a lot more forest fires than
Oh, that's
ever
admitted.
in history. Yes, then they know that. Well, the numbers are there. They can't lie. And so Sheriff Palmer got sick and tired of the Forest Service citing his people, arresting his people, sending them to federal court 6 hours away, 7 hours away in Portland. And he said, that's not going to happen anymore. You're not going to treat people like that. You're not going to shut off roads anymore, act like you own everything here, because you don't. And he wrote him a letter and said, now my intergovernmental agreement with you will not be renewed. I'm not going to sign it. And you guys are being put on notice. Now he's issued another letter to him that he's actually going to arrest them if they fail to comply with what he's doing. Now, another key component of this, the people got behind this good sheriff. And when I went there to speak at the rally, all the people showed up. There's like 600 people at the high school gym. And there's a full-page ad in the local newspaper, an entire full page. And it has 600 names on it of local citizens who support their sheriff keeping his oath, supporting the Constitution, and defending freedom.
And even if the feds then try to persecute them, that persecution will let them really come together. And from what I've heard, this is spreading now.
It is.
A lot of other sheriffs aren't going all the way, but these cultures of liberty are spreading.
It's starting.
And the fires are being set. The brush fires in the minds of men and women. The great animating contest of liberty is now accelerating. That is so exciting, Sheriff Mack. We've got about 10 minutes left here, and I know you've had a long day. We'll let you get out of here.
I still have to get to another interview with Dr. Stan Monteith.
My goodness, what time is that?
11.
You are working hard.
So, yeah, I got to be home in time to do that. But I've got plenty. It looks like we got plenty of time, and my wife's waiting out for me. And I call her the pretty little.
You can be back to Fredericksburg about an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'll be back plenty of time. So, but I just wanted to make sure people could get these tools. They're so extremely valuable. They're on my website. Make sure that you have a sheriff that knows and understands this book, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. Talk to him about it. He's probably already received the book because a lot of good people have made sure that every sheriff in the country got it. But since we sent 3,100 of these out to all the sheriffs, we have new sheriffs now. Not all of them, but there's about...
Oh, they need to be knee-deep in those.
But they do.
Pocket constitutions, the ruling, they need to be knee-deep.
Now, you notice on the ruling, this is the state flag, which answers the question you said, why do we have states? This is the autonomy that is expressed by each state. They have their own flags. So let's use them. And this is an extremely valuable tool. And let me tell you my favorite quote from this entire decision. It actually brings in what's the motto of the Obama administration and the Eric Holder Justice Department?
Their motto is ship guns into Mexico and frame the Second Amendment?
No, the other one. Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yes.
Okay? Well, Scalia talks about that in here, and he says this, but the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. Do you know what happens if not every, if we get maybe 20 or 30% of sheriffs and local officials to live by that one line, one sentence, but the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns. All the people are sovereigns, and the states sovereign, so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day.
And that's how it's always sold, and they sell it with a good packaging. But the people selling this New World Order...
And of course, they would never create that crisis either. They would never fabricate that crisis, just like Obama did with the health care debate. Oh, everybody's dying, and if we don't get this to them right now, the people are going to continue to die. And, oh, we've got to do this bailout right now, or our economy is going to go to crap.
Or there's guns in Mexico. Oh, we got to restrict the Second Amendment. By the way, I shipped them down there.
Yeah, and he has his BATF shipping them down there. And that's how ridiculous and crazy this has gotten. And so, folks, again, this extremely valuable tool, if you want to see how we avoid the crisis of the day, Scalia says the way to avoid the crisis of the day from the federal government and to stop their tyranny and their, he calls it incursions,
Well, listen,
is at the state and county level.
In closing,